Welcome to our posts today. We will see stories of r/MaliciousCompliance, legal tender. When I worked at a gas station in the late 90s during graveyard, I had this guy come in and bought a candy bar with a 100 bill. Really? You don't have anything smaller? I'm just trying to break the 100. Don't be a jerk. Fine, just this once. Few days later, guy comes back in, grabs a candy bar, and I see he has other bills in his wallet. Puts the 100 on the table. Sir, I told you last time it was going to be just the once. I see you have a $5 bill. This is legal tender. You have to take it. Okay. I reach under the counter and pull out 2 boxes of pennies, 50c to a roll, $25 to a box, 17 pounds each. Here is 50. Do you want the rest in nickels? What is this? It's legal tender. I can choose to give you your change however I see fit. So, do you still want to break the 100 or the 5? I'm calling your manager. She gets in at 8 a.m., sir, but doesn't take any calls until 10. Next story. Put me on the alarm notification list, but don't give me any guidelines. Good luck. My employer was a medium-sized business, approx 50 employees at the time, and I happened to live right across the street about 34 miles from our office. Shortly after I started working there, they asked me if I would mind being listed as a contact for the burglar alarm since all of the facility's admin people lived pretty far away and I was right across the street. They said any time the burglar alarm goes off, someone has to drive over to meet the police. Don't ask me why, I don't really understand the policy. At the time, I was a young, naive, recent college grad and figured I would try to be helpful and told them I didn't mind. Our internal company policy was if you accidentally set the alarm off, you immediately call the people on the alarm company's list in order so they know it's a false alarm and they can tell the alarm company to ignore it. At the outset, this worked pretty well. I'd get a few false alarm calls a year, but I'd always get an apologetic call from the employee that set the alarm off, so I would just tell the alarm company to ignore it. Then the company started growing, and we started having more and more false alarms as we had new employees that would forget about the alarm, and then we started having employees that would ignore the policy and would just leave after setting the alarm off without notifying anybody. After I got wise to this, I started telling the alarm company to ignore everything even if I didn't get a call because we started getting charged false alarm fees, and I figured there was a 99% chance it was a false alarm. I figured we shouldn't waste the time of the police or waste company money paying false alarm fees. I brought this up in a meeting with our crew and they crap a brick and insisted that we couldn't ignore alarm events because what if someone really did break in and somebody was working late? They could be at risk. So I said, okay, staff need refresher training because they aren't following the policy to notify me of false alarms, so we're going to have a ton of police dispatches for false alarm events. Q minimizes the issue and insists the current policy is fine and no retraining is necessary, so Q malicious compliance. Anytime I got an alarm call without someone notifying me of a false alarm, I followed the policy and had them send the police. There were 2 or 3 false alarm calls where the police showed up, found nothing, and sent us a bill. The very next call, I sent the police like the policy said, and right as they were pulling up, they saw a vehicle pulling out of the parking lot and chased it. The employee that got chased? Yeah, it was the CEO. In addition to getting chased, he ended up getting cited for speeding as well. The next day, Ku tries to pin this on me like it's somehow my fault, to which I reply, I just followed the policy you gave me. The next day, the entire company went through refresher training on alarm procedures, and I was taken off the alarm call list. I count it as a win. Next story. Treat your employees like garbage. Enjoy an extra 100 plus emails a day. I'm finally leaving my toxic job for a better opportunity. My narcissistic boss treats everyone under her like shit and is generally rude, condescending, and miserable to work for. We work in a field where we are constantly bombarded by salespeople, many of whom are extremely persistent and borderline rude. I sometimes get over 100 emails a day from such salespeople, not to mention phone calls, but I have specific rules set up in my Outlook so that they mostly go straight to my junk folder. My boss is not so good at Outlook or technology in general, so she does not know how to do this. She would often scream at me to find emails for her because somehow she could not even figure out how the search function worked. When I resigned, she told me to notify every representative I am regularly in contact with that I am leaving, and that she is the new point of contact until they find a replacement for me. I've spent the last week providing each and every salesperson with her email and direct dial. Good luck getting rid of those. Next story. If you're living in my house, you'll follow my rules. My male hair got quite long when I was in my senior year of high school. In a pearl-clutching southern town, this got me a fair amount of flack, but the worst was from my dad. He'd always been kind of a tyrant, and his anger was unbearable in my later teens, so I avoided him as much as possible around the house. One day he decided he'd had enough of my long hair, so he walked behind me with scissors and snicked them menacingly. I jumped up and snapped at him, and he shouted back something to the effect of, "If you're living under my roof, you'll follow my rules." So the next day, while he was at work, I moved out. I didn't even say bye. Living in my own apartment while in high school was fun and had some perks. When I skipped class, the school would call my apartment to tell me, "Your child was not at school today, lol." Edit. He didn't actually cut my hair. Also, the fallout was that he was a lot better to be around from then on. I think he realized that if he wanted to have a relationship with his son, he was going to have to not be such a you-know-what. Next story. Should have pre-approved my remote day due sickness. Okay. This happened in my old job, and I was reminded it today. Thought it would fit here. In my old job, we had a great boss and hybrid work. If we had any reason not to come to the office, just a message to him, an extra remote day would be approved. Then he was let go, and we got a new boss, who was exact opposite of her predecessor. This happened a few weeks after our old boss was let go and his boss became our new boss. One morning I wasn't feeling well, too sick to travel to the office, but not too sick to work from home. I had a couple of remote meetings with customers, so it was just easier to me to work while being a little sick than try to reschedule. I spoke with my boss in Slack, and our conversation was like this. Me, good morning. I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'll be working from home today, so no need to reschedule anything. Boss, our employer handbook clearly states that remote days are Tuesday and Thursday and exceptions need a pre-approved by the manager. I was pissed. Is she really trying to force me to the office even I'm sick? Or what was her motive? But then it hit me, it doesn't matter, and our discussion continued. Me, oh sorry, that's true. Me, I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'm unable to come to the office, so I'm taking a sick day. Could you ask someone to reschedule the meetings with customer A and customer B, since I'm recovering at home at least for today? Me, the employer handbook states that I can take 3 sick days in a row without a doctor's note. But I'm willing to make an exception if you want to, and get you one. Do you want it? I was left on read for 10 minutes. She started typing, deleted the text, started again, and deleted it again. She was active in our chat for entire 10 minutes until I finally got a response. Boss, no, that won't be necessary. I'll ask someone to reschedule those meetings. Get well soon. My colleagues almost died on laughter when I told them why I'm having a sick day and not just work from home. Our boss didn't like me after that, but the feeling was mutual. I left the company later for a new job, but not before she was fired. Edit. Formatting. Edit 2. Thank you so much for upvotes. Several people are asking for why she was fired. I wrote it in one comment, but I'll write a longer version here. She was commercial director. Last year before she joined the company, it made 606k euros profit. In her first year, 413k euros, second year 1k euros, and she was fired at the end of the third. Numbers aren't public yet, but they are similar to the last year, if they somehow managed to stay profitable at all. She had previous experience from companies over 20 times bigger than that, and she was hired to help the company grow to the next level. Unfortunately, her skills were just to implement heavy processes and stiff organizational model. Her commercial department had 7 people working under her, and there was 4 sub-departments: sales, productization, account management, and marketing. 4 in sales, 2 in productization, 1 in account management, and marketing was handled by an outside contractor. We had 26 employees in total. We in sales were completely in new business, and after we had a signed agreement, account management took the contact role. Our former boss was head of sales, and he suggested that salesperson could be the contact for the first year, or even handle possible upselling, selling more to the current customer. But the commercial director didn't even let him finish before said no. So the company lost a lot of money when not doing the upsell. It's pretty common that companies start with a small deal with a new software and expand the use step by step. For some reason, this wasn't an option if the customer didn't specifically ask us to provide more licenses. She was there before I was, but during my time she focused on standardizing the sales process, which led to us losing the sales and bringing in less money. For example, we couldn't modify text in proposals for the customers without asking a permission from productization, and even after that only marketing would be allowed to make changes. And this was even in situations where the customer didn't want some feature our product had, we couldn't even remove the text about it. I once counted that my proposal introduced 11 features, and 9 of them were completely irrelevant to the customer. 2 of them were something that the customer had explicitly stated that they didn't want those. This was a software, so it had some features customers didn't use, but they didn't affect the pricing, so it didn't matter. It led to situations where we heard from the customers that we focused in completely unrelated things, not those which were relevant to the customer, and their board chose another vendor, even if the internal champion believed we were much better. Which we said would happen before this new model was implemented. Some other standardizations lead to the situations where owners asked something for us to do something, and we had to decline since we weren't allowed to do that. They respected her role, even when they didn't agree with her decisions. But it's hard to believe that it didn't affect her termination. She costed about €2 million to the company, and that doesn't even include her salary. And for the top of that, she turned the company culture to something the owners didn't like. So she was expensive, difficult person, and hard to work with. Next story. Threaten to sue me? Go for it. Backstory. I have a 5-year-old daughter with my ex-wife. We broke up about 5 years ago. We had some ups and downs during our marriage. We never argued or fought per se, but we did negotiate a lot with strong emotions and opinions. Yet, we always managed to find some common ground to stand on together. That's why it kinda caught me by surprise when she told me she wanted a divorce. I cried for a couple days, went fishing, and then started planning on how to figure things out. Because neither of us had enough income at that point to keep our car and/or house, we agreed that I should take care of selling the car, and she would get a realtor to start selling our home. Well, turns out I had to do both. Anyway, we had more debt than money, and she tried to leave all the debt to me while she would start from a clean slate. I wouldn't let her, and I made sure everything we owned and every bit of debt would be split evenly. We agreed that our daughter would live with both of us, splitting the time evenly as our daughter had the right to having 2 parents. We promised each other to act civil. This didn't last long. We also had agreed that since our salaries were pretty even, neither of us would pay child support. We also agreed that she would take care of buying most of the clothes etc. for our kid, since she would get the child benefit about €100 a month here in Finland paid by the government to support raising offspring. After the breakup, she started mail ordering new furniture for herself, even before she had found a new apartment for herself, kinda obvious, but she really didn't have the money for it either. 2 weeks later, she moved out. A week later, I heard from our kid that she had a new man. I didn't really care, just raised some eyebrows. She would often call in sick to her work, usually BS reasons, and when her boss gave some feedback, she didn't fix her attitude, but instead she just quit. She applied to a school and got in. After about 2 months, she quit the school too and started demanding me to pay child support. We got a professional to weigh in and agreed that I still wouldn't pay a dime to her because she herself had caused her income to collapse. As a goodwill act, I offered to pay for our daughter's insurance. I thought the matter was settled, but then she got pregnant for her new man a few months after our breakup. After our divorce was final, there is a 6 months reconsideration time before the judge calls it she married her new man. These things empowered her into demanding for money again and again and again. So now that you know what kind of person we're dealing with. The case. Last fall she yet again demanded money to support our kid. She was working again, and I knew she used our kid as an excuse because she had expressed envy towards my ability to control my finances to a point that even when I had the same amount money, I could eat in restaurants, etc. I told her that if she needed child support for legitimate reasons, I would of course help, but all the expenses would have to be calculated properly to know the right amount she would need. Instead, she demanded I would pay her €200 a month, and she would take care of all the expenses regarding our daughter. She didn't have any real reasons for the demand other than her need for control. She had always been someone who wanted to have the last say in things. On top of her demand, this time she threatened to sue me if I didn't pay her. I pretty much laughed at it until I got a message from her lawyer. At that point I messaged my ex telling her from now on I would only discuss this matter via our lawyers and started looking for a lawyer myself. During the next couple months things started to look really bad for her case. After getting the papers from the court, I noticed her case was based on false data. She and her lawyer hadn't asked for my income and expenses before they sued me, and she had estimated my income to be a lot more than it actually was. Also, my expenses were estimated to be smaller than actual. At this point, I messaged my ex and asked if she's sure she doesn't want to settle. She didn't, so I decided to go with some malicious compliance and didn't try again. After we both calculated every income and expense of both parties with the help of our lawyers, I and my lawyer confirmed that she had enough money to raise our kid. Not only that, it turned out she actually had more money than me for it monthly income minus living costs, medicine, etc. etc. I burst out laughing at the absurdity of her case, even more so when she tried to twist things to her favor by sending false evidence to us and the judge, which we noticed instantly. A couple days go by, and my lawyer calls me. She had gotten a call from my ex's lawyer saying he had noticed my ex is lying and the whole case is based on lies and the lawyer wants to settle. It looked like my make wouldn't go through until my lawyer got a message that for some reason they won't settle after all. Game on, the judgment. We went to court. The judge was annoyed but composed. He asked my ex's lawyer about their demands. The lawyer started by saying, "First, I'm going to tell a bit of the backstory." And the judge cut him off, telling him to just state the demands. After a few seconds of silence, the lawyer told the judge, "No demands." The judge was both dumbfounded and livid, asking, "Then why are we here?" To which my lawyer said something along the lines of, "That's what we're asking too." Then the judge asked my ex's lawyer, "To be clear, didn't you want to settle?" And the lawyer sheepishly told the judge that my ex wouldn't agree to settle. They were so embarrassed, it was so glorious, like some kind of divine karma being served right at my Karen of an ex. The judge ordered us to go to a meeting room for 20 minutes and to come back with a settlement agreement. Because she had more money, we negotiated that she would pay for our kids' hobbies, insurance, etc. to compensate for the difference. The judge verified it, and my party left the courtroom very happy. My ex, on the other hand, was balancing between being angry and embarrassed. The fallout. A couple weeks ago, my ex demanded that we would make changes to the schedule on how our kid would swap homes. I declined, saying we have an agreement. She threatened to sue me, to which I just reminded her about the last time she wanted to get what she wants by suing me, asking if she really wants to do it again. She got mad, and I just ignored it. About a week ago, she sent me a message saying that she had a fight with her husband. Police were called because she attacked him and she wanted a divorce. The police had to inform Child Protective Services since there were kids present, mine included. Basically, her whole life has gone down the drain. 2 kids to different fathers, 2 divorces before she has even turned 30, a lot of debt and expenses, and looks like our kid will be spending the majority of her time at my place, which is what our kid has wanted for the past 2-ish years. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel. Our posts